He was once a college chemistry professor, so he hoped he was a shoo-in for work with the Waffen-SS. He ended up working at the Rundfunkhaus, a Berlin radio station broadcasting Nazi propaganda. But after his university was bombed, he took what he could get and was grateful for work that didn't require him to carry a gun. But when the Science and Research Department in the Reich Main security office gave him orders to go to the Dachau camp to retrieve paperwork, he solemnly went home to pack for his 2-day trip, driving there one day, returning home the next. He'd seen the Sachsenhausen concentration camp 35 kilometers north of Berlin, but Sachsenhausen was more of a training center for Schutzwaffe officers before the SS men were sent to oversee other camps. And although Dachau was small, it was essentially the first, and it set the standard for all of Hitler's camps. He felt the tension knot in his stomach grow, even before saying goodbye to his wife and 2 children. Arriving at the camp the next afternoon, he learned the lieutenant general was away from his office, so he would only get the necessary paperwork the next morning, which left him alone at the camp in a stranger's office. He paced. A part of him didn't want to go out there. There was safety inside these office walls. Here he could remain separate from the war. After nearly an hour of pacing, he decided to just go out there, face it, deal with it, get it over with. And he stepped outside, and when he stepped outside, the air felt heavy. He could feel the weight of the move he made. The weight on his legs grew heavier. He dragged his feet, making his way to the open walkway. Although there was that heavy haze in the air, he knew what chemical reactions had occurred to leave that distinct smell and smoke and haze in that morning that was working its way through the air. He saw across the clearing the doors closed to the showers, so he walked with a determination to bring himself to that hall. He could hear the sounds of people inside grow louder, but as he caught a glimpse of the guard, as he just made his way to the top of the roof, as he got closer, he watched that soldier open what looked like a can and shake it into a vent at the center of the building before closing the vent and walking across the roof before taking the ladder back down. From that moment, anything from that can made its way to that building. With every subsequent step he took, he could hear the wails and screams get louder and louder from the Jews inside. He stopped for a moment. Look, he thought, he knew what this was. Get used to this was all he could think to himself to get his heavy feet moving again. He caught the soldier walking down the ladder from the building and quickened his pace to catch him before he got far from the building. Not able to see the ranking on the uniform or shirt, he quickened his pace to not yell for the soldier. With the soldier still holding the jar in his hand, he asked if he could see the can. Once he had it in his hand, he looked at all the elements on the label. Zyklon B, hydrogen cyanide. He knew this poisonous liquid boiled at just above room temperature, so he knew that all that they had to do was drop some from a sealed can into an open hall, poisoning thousands in only 20 minutes. He knew the Germans' first thought of using this prussic acid against Napoleon in 1813, and if they had, it would have been the first time hydrogen cyanide was used in wartime. But look at him now, the chemistry professor, reduced to thinking of how all the Jews inhaled this bitter almond smell of hydrogen cyanide and to combine with all their red blood cells, causing death from hydrogen-oxygen starvation. He suddenly felt that he had to take a deep breath, get all the oxygen he could. He saw the blue stains on the concrete walls, then walked back to the soldier and gave him the empty can. When the soldier was then starting to make small talk, he said, "One of the older Jews pleaded to me. I'm a decorated vet from World War I, and I was an artillery battalion member. We shot gas shells at the British and Americans. I shouldn't be here, and my papers are with my luggage." And they were just telling him over and over again to go into the showers. And he knew in World War I that we shot those shells into trenches in France. So he shrugged and gave a slight grin to commiserate with the soldier. But he knew that everyone fights their own battles in this war. He was only a lieutenant, a lower-ranking attaché than the colonel who sent him on this job. But he still held rank over this soldier, so he told the soldier that when there were no screams inside, they opened the doors to bring everyone to the crematorium, he wanted to be notified. Then he walked away. At 50 paces, he clutched at his pockets to find his cigarettes and lighter. He wanted anything to calm him down and help him focus on anything else until it was time. He stood in the field, chain smoking, until he heard the running footsteps in the distance. He looked at his pocket watch. 20 minutes had passed as he saw a soldier running toward him. He looked at the gas chamber and saw that it had been opened. The doors were open. So he started that methodical walk back to where he was destined to go. He acknowledged the soldier with a wave and quickened his pace to the building. He saw a few different soldiers this time, all waiting until the cloud of gas had been cleared from the chamber so they could work. He walked to the doorway. It was dark, but he could make out a pyramid of people toward that small, now closed center vent. From what he could tell, it looked like the Jews tossed the babies and small children toward the top in an effort to keep the children alive. One of the soldiers passed him as he stared, so he asked how long had he been doing this. "Nearly a year," he answered. So he had to ask if doing this, if seeing this, bothered him. The man only answered, "If you do something long enough, you get used to anything." And with that, he nodded slightly and knew he saw enough. He walked away. Early the next morning, he came back to the offices at the Dachau concentration camp so he could get that paperwork as quickly as possible, so he could get out of there as quickly as possible. The tension knot grew smaller in his stomach the closer he got to his home in that drive. But as he came home to his house, he saw his wife sitting outside their home with all the windows open. Once he got out of the car, he could hear her coughing, sounding more and more hoarse with each gasp. He only wanted to hold her, but concern overtook him as she explained that she had just used a pesticide fumigant throughout the house and that she could no longer breathe while inside those walls. He looked at the second floor of the house for the children, and she told them that they were each staying the night at a friend's house. And suddenly, he imagined that fumigant there that was killing the vermin in their home. Hydrogen cyanide was now in their home. A form of Zyklon B was now in their home. Now she was trying to kill the vermin, and he thought of the propaganda ministry that he now worked for, telling the nation to believe that the Jews are the rats and the Jews are the vermin. So he looked at their home, and he told her that they would get out of here tonight as far as they possibly could. He then held her close before they walked away, holding hands. Thank you. That was a strange thing to do.